All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. Welcome to episode 2 of Talks with V, presented by the HBCU Lounge Network. We're so happy to have you this evening, and we will be talking about unconditional love. So, welcome to our guest. We may have another guest joining us a little bit later, but right now, I would like to introduce our guest, Sersha, King Sersha. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I would like to allow you to introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Hey, my name is Saoirse Davis. I'm from Mansfield, Ohio. I reside here in North Carolina. Serial entrepreneur. I actually own a teeth whitening business. Own a CBD store. What else? I do credit repair and massage therapist as well too. I'm
Wow.
super excited about being on this live and giving my feedback and dialogue, and I look forward to what the conversation is going to take us. Thank you for having me.
Lovely. Thank you so much. You are a jack of all trades, huh?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
But
ma'am.
that's a great thing. I mean, if you're good at, multiple things, I feel like you have to just, obviously take it one at a time and just shine in every lane.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So welcome. So this topic with unconditional love, I think that a lot of times it can be kind of tricky because there's so many different perspectives on this topic. Some people don't believe in it. They don't believe that it exists. Some people really believe in it, and then there's those that are in between and kind of change their mind. I know that when I've had the conversation with several different people, it's kind of just hearing those other perspectives makes me think like, well, maybe I don't think that, or maybe, maybe I do. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right in to the questions here. And our first question is, does unconditional love exist? And this is your perspective.
Right, right. Okay. So my opinion is that unconditional love does exist,
Okay.
but I also feel that unconditional love is so far from reality, right?
Mm,
I think
okay.
unconditional love is when you have children, those are the ones you love unconditionally. I didn't say mom or dad because we
Mm,
all dealt different type of cards, right? So we
okay.
may not um, care for the parents that we was dealt, so we don't love them unconditionally, right?
Mm,
Now speaking based off relationship wise, I think it exists, but I think it's if it's based off of a percentile, I
mm-hmm.
say maybe 5 or 10% unconditionally love someone,
Hmm.
and 90, 95% does not love unconditionally.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I probably wouldn't argue with you about that 90 just because um in many cases from hearing other people's perspectives, that's really what inspired me is so many people saying that they don't believe in unconditional love, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it made me really reflect on it. And it's just like if you haven't really experienced love in general, then of course you wouldn't believe that unconditional love exists because you haven't experienced even being loved. A lot of people,
Right.
like you said, the cards that they're dealt, they may have come up a certain way where they never felt loved, or never really experienced, it. um and as far as the love and it being unconditional, I kind of struggle with that because when we talk about the definition of unconditional, not unconditional love, but love, um, I'm wondering if there's really a big difference, between love and unconditional love because love is pretty. I mean, when we think about the agape love, right? Because there's different types of love, but that came later, right? But in
Right.
the biblical sense, agape love that's been around, right? And so when we think about that, that's very difficult to do. I remember some time ago I was having a conversation with my mom and we read the definition, and like maybe like a day later, she was visiting, and then it came up, and it was on a sermon or something that we were listening to, maybe an interview or a sermon. And I looked at my mom and I said, "Mom, I don't think anyone loves loves anybody, because this definition is difficult. Like, I mean, doesn't if he doesn't boast, it's not self-seeking, like it's patient. I mean, and it's just like, I don't know if we're that all the time, but I do think that it exists, and you maybe experience it in different points in your life. But
Right.
you know, maybe not, all the time. So I don't
Right.
know.
Right.
And then with unconditional love as well, I think that unconditional love's in a sense with yourself. And then who's to say that if you can unconditionally love, your children, that you can unconditionally love someone else, you know?
Right. But I think when since the children come from our wombs, or
Mhm.
come from us, and
Yes,
we create them, I think
right.
that's the diff. That's
It's like
the
you have no
diff.
choice.
Right. It's really no choice. Well, you got a choice, but I think it's more likely to be favorable if you have children where you can love them unconditionally, because there's
Yeah,
really no strings attached.
right.
Because when it comes to our children, it's not based off what they can or cannot do for them. We just want the best for them. We want to see them
Right.
grow and excel. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's why, yeah,
Yeah, you're I can agree with you on that, because it's coming from a place where you don't have any expectations really, when this is your child, like, okay, I need to take care of this child,
right,
I'm not expecting them to take care of me, and
yep,
drive me around, and make sure I'm fed and all these things. It's going to be one-sided for some
yeah,
time, which makes me think that maybe if you can shift your perspective, your mentally, then you could, love unconditionally, because you are making a choice, I think that sometimes there is something in the inside that kind of just makes you, like, it's like,
yep,
okay, like, I just love you, and I can't stop, right?
right,
But there are some people who don't, or they don't, treat their children like they love them. So yeah. So yeah, I think it can kind of go many, different ways with that. But I hear you. I hear you. And I think that a lot of people could would agree with what you're saying. So, and as far as unconditional love, is unconditional love, do you believe that unconditional love is required for a successful relationship?
I don't think it's required, but I think it's heavily admired. Right?
Okay.
It's not required, but it's heavily admired. It's like
Mm.
perfection. Perfection
Okay.
isn't required, but it is
Right.
admired. Right?
Mm.
I do think if you do love someone unconditionally with no strings attached, when
Mm.
things start to go left, you will start to have um, a different sense. Example,
Hmm.
like when a woman have children, her body
Mm.
can completely change. Right? It's just
Yeah.
anatomy. That's just how the body happens. But you
Mhm.
will see a lot of men will just treat the woman completely different because she doesn't look how she once was. And now they
Right.
got the breakup, everything is going,
Mm.
haywire. So
Okay.
I think unconditional love can allow someone or some relationships to be successful, right?
Right.
Um, but we can't misconstrue unconditional love for I get cheated on all the time, or I cheat on somebody
Yeah.
all the time, and I expect them just to accept that because they love
Right.
me unconditionally. So we have to understand that as well too, though.
Right. Because that's just kind of abusing them to an extent, right?
There you go.
Okay. Well,
Mhm.
we're gonna come back there. I want to go ahead and introduce King Midas to the stage. Welcome, 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 King Midas. We're so glad that you guys
Hello,
joined us.
hello. What's going on?
Nothing much. We just been here
Absolutely.
talk.
So excited to be here.
Yes, we're talking about unconditional love, and so I'm gonna go back to you really quick, so we can go ahead and introduce you.
Hmm.
So King Midas, welcome to the show. If you can tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then I'll pose those questions to you as well.
Absolutely. And I appreciate it. Thank you so much again for having me there.
Mhm.
So it's interesting. Well, no, first I'll introduce myself. So my name is King Midas. I am
Yes.
a marriage enthusiast. I have 13 years of experience. I have been married for almost 10 years. So I'm really excited about that next year, 22, 10 years. Um, and I've been with my wife for almost 14 years. So
Okay.
definitely a wonderful journey. And just in terms of being a marriage enthusiast, man, I love just talking to people about what modern day marriages actually look like from
Mhm.
a man's perspective. And I specifically work and coach men who are interested in marriage, as well as those brothers who are already married and trying to decide if they need to stay in the marriage or not. But that's another conversation for another day.
Yes.
And I'm really excited to be here.
Nice. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here and your
Of course.
perspective. We always love that, promoting marriage, staying together. Sometimes all
Somebody.
you need is just
Hmm.
someone, one person to tell you you can do it.
Exactly.
And it's worth the
Hmm.
work.
Exactly.
So
Hmm.
I'll go ahead and pose a
Yep.
question to you. The first question, which is, does unconditional love exist? And if you could give us your perspective.
Yes, when it's with children, and I believe I heard you both talking about that before.
Mhm.
Um, Absolutely. If we're talking in relationships, I would say maybe once you are together for a certain amount of time, or maybe have gone through certain things together, like the
Mhm.
couples who've been together the 30 and the 40 and the 50 years.
Right.
Before that, honestly, I don't think so. And even
Okay.
myself, I've been married, like I said, almost 10 years. And my wife and I, we talk about it all the time because
Okay.
our love, now the love that we have for each other is not conditional, but being in love and being in this union, like in a
Mhm.
relationship, absolutely, that love has conditions. If I stop
Okay.
doing or handling my business as a husband, if I'm not handling things around the house, if I stop paying the bills, if I just stop being a husband, but I'm still here, the body is still here,
You're right. That's
things are going to
that's true.
change, right? Because now I'm not upholding my end of the bargain, and vice
Mhm.
versa for her. So we always talk about how our love does have conditions, and that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with it. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
that our love is like cheapened, but at the end of the day, we signed a contract to basically work as hard as we could for one another and for ourselves. So if I stop doing that and I stop showing her the affection that I have for her, if I stop feeding those love languages, then
Mhm.
absolutely I cannot expect her to still stay with me in those kind of
Right.
situations. So that's just kind of where I am with it at this stage.
No. Now that makes sense. But what one thing that you mentioned, you said that the love that you guys have for each other is not conditional.
Hmm.
So maybe break
Hmm.
that down for those who may not understand that, because when you talk about the relationship and things like that, of course, like, we are in these
Yeah.
bodies that are, flesh. And so there's limitations,
Hmm.
on that. So maybe break that
Right.
down about the love that you have for each other being not being conditional.
Absolutely. Right. And so it's like I was saying before, once you've been through certain things with someone,
Hmm.
especially if your love is pure and you have pure intentions,
Hmm.
then it's almost like you get to a certain space where there's nothing that person can do. Like once she had my first child, there was nothing that
Hmm.
she could do really at that stage in the game that could have thrown me off to not still always have love for her no matter what. And
Okay.
to know that I was going to be there for her, because an experience like that is something that was monumental, right, for me.
Right.
And then
Right.
we've had other situations just in life where we've been able to prove again, just over and over by our actions, how much we care about each other. So
Hmm.
that kind of builds up stock, if you will. So it's
Right.
like
Okay.
she's reached a certain point at this stage where it's like it doesn't matter what happens, you're always going to be good for life. Like I'm always going to be there for you no matter what because of this type of relationship. It doesn't mean we would necessarily be in love. It doesn't mean that
Mhm.
there's nothing that can take us away from this. But
Right.
regardless of what situation might happen, like she'll always have that from me and vice versa. Hopefully that
Gotcha.
cleared it up a little bit and I didn't
Yes,
confuse
I
y'all
think it
more.
did. I think
Okay.
it did. I wanted to make sure for the audience. Okay. And so next, the next question is, And that's what we were touching on when you came in with Sersha, with King Sersha, is unconditional love required for, a successful relationship?
I don't think so. I think your best effort, I think putting your best foot forward, putting your best effort, and making sure your actions follow your words, I think that's necessary.
Yeah.
I think, being a person of your word, like definitely being a man of your word, having integrity, like all of those things I think are necessary. I think, again, unconditional love, it gets built in over time. Because in the beginning, honestly, that's when most of the conditions are really prevalent. Once you first get married, and them first couple of years, and you're really learning the person, some people didn't even live with them ahead of time. So they're really learning this person. And so now you're trying to figure out what your rhythm is as a married couple. So honestly, the conditions are popping up left and right in the beginning.
Yeah,
it's
I
more
can
so
see that.
over time where it kind of evens out a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that because my mom says I'm picky. And maybe I am. But
Hey, own it. And that's okay.
In the beginning, I'm kind of like, wait, what? Like, and I'm asking a lot of questions, and I'm just like, make it make sense, And so it is, conditional, there in the beginning, because you don't even know if you're going to get to that place where we're in love, and want, to be with each other and say, okay, I want to put in this work, because I think that when it comes to love, you really like, you're choosing that, and you're saying, I'm choosing to stay here and work with you, because I see a future. I see that we are good partners. I see that we'll be able to work well together. So you have to make that that choice. And so there's some things that you might consider to make that choice, to commit, to say, okay, I'm here, you got me, we locked in, and so
right, exactly.
So Sersha was saying, Sersha, kind of reiterate what you were saying about the about it, that it's, it would be appreciated, right, to have that unconditional love in a relationship. Go ahead and catch us back up. Or catch,
it would definitely be appreciated, right? Like I said, unconditional love would be, it's admired, right? But it's not required, right? Like I said, perfection, you admire perfection, but perfection really is not required.
Right.
But if you do find someone that you can find yourself loving them unconditionally, as long as you are consistent with the behaviors that each other like and love, when you all indulge one another, I think that'll help relationships build and grow, right?
Okay.
Because I think, like King Midas was saying at the very beginning and the onset in the first year or so, you building that foundation for your conditions right then and there.
For your conditions.
Yeah, you have to build some type of foundation, right?
Right.
My
Okay.
mother always said, "You stand for nothing, you fall for anything." And you
That's
never
true.
let your emotion override your intelligence, right? Because if you, it's okay to love somebody unconditionally, but if you continuously get crapped on, or you get mistreated, or lied to, or it becomes deceitful, it goes from unconditional conditions real fast, right? And then that's when things start going left. So yes.
Well, and then that's the thing too, in having this conversation with different folks. And we talk about that. I think a lot of times when we're talking about unconditional love, people automatically assume that means that because I love you unconditionally, that means that I'm going to stay and deal with the most heinous, craziest things, meaning abuse, constant cheating, things like that. And me personally, I believe that I can love you unconditionally. And if you are putting me in danger, I can remove myself from you, but that doesn't mean that I don't love you, still, and that I can help you from afar, and get you help, but not be living with you, if you have an addiction, right? It doesn't mean, oh, okay, I just sit here and just let you drink to death, or gamble and have the whole family out on the streets. Like, no, I have to use some discernment.
Exactly.
And I always say this about, out of the two individuals in a relationship, the person that knows more at the time, is the one that's responsible. So if me and you are in a relationship and I know better, but at this moment you don't know better, or you're in a position that you kind of like, in distress or just not thinking clearly, then I need to step up and make the decision for the both of us, because there's nothing, my senses are not, off or anything like that. Like, I don't have anything that's got me distraught emotionally or something else that's going on that's preventing me from understanding what needs to be done. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big part too of that partnership, is like, okay, well, you down, so I'm up. I'm going to make sure that, this is taken care of. And two's better than one. For that very reason. Okay.
Exactly.
And I think that this is a good segue.
I loved everything you just said.
And I'm learning. Like, I'm constantly learning, even with the show, with the several shows that I've been working on. I learned so much from you all, the guests, and just hearing their perspective. I'm like, maybe I've been thinking a little crazy about that. Like, maybe I was tripping, and so then you can kind of sit and listen, especially to people who've been through it or been through something similar, and then they failed, and now they're like, okay, I know that don't work, and I'm trying to help you out. It don't work. Exactly. But yeah, so that's a good segue into the next question, which is about, are there, like, what are some of those misconceptions about unconditional love? So either of you guys can take it first, whoever feels it. Who wants to take it first?
Well, Saoirse, I know you've been here, so feel free to jump in.
Yes.
Your question is, what are some of those misconceptions about unconditional love?
Yes, like, what are the misconceptions about unconditional love? Or are there,
Like, an example, like when Cardi B had that song and she said, I don't cook, I don't clean, but I still got a ring, right? So somebody right there, if somebody took that literally, right? Like, which social media, what people did, took it literal. Right. So if their spouse didn't stand for that at the beginning, like, they changed their whole thought process based strictly off what she said, and they brought that into a relationship and brought that to their reality. So the perception was, I don't cook, I don't clean, but I still got the ring, and my man's still gonna love me unconditionally and gonna still be with me.
Right.
That's a misconception, because that's technically not really true, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, and you're right. I mean, I don't know who it could really be true for, because a lot of these situations, they're very superficial, like superficial relationships. And so it's just like, okay, no, that's not how this works.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what about, so what else do we make, other, I guess, assumptions about unconditional love? Midas, if you want.
I think people feel like it's, sure. No, I think one of the misconceptions, the biggest ones, is the fact that people think, one, everybody feels like they deserve it. And they deserve it from everybody that they date, which is very interesting, because people feel like they should be able to have kind of like free reign to do whatever they want. Because, especially depending how things are actually defined in the relationship. But I think people think unconditional love comes in the beginning. And it's kind of like what I had said before. Like, unconditional love is something that you absolutely like aspire for and aspire to, but it's not even something that I feel like comes until you're like much farther down the line in the relationship, whether it's marriage or just long-term cohabitation, whatever. And then I think also a misconception is, I wonder if people really know that there's levels to like this love thing. You know what I mean? I think most folks think it's one dimensional, right? Like, love is love, boom, that's it, it's done. And it's not that simple. You really do reach different levels and different highs.
Right.
And if you've never experienced it, it's hard to explain. The best way is just to understand that love has levels to it. And so a
Right.
misconception is that as soon as you fall for someone, it's unconditional love. You should lay down your life for them. Y'all have only been dating for a year and a half, but lay down your life. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, we're here, we're unconditional. Wow.
It's
And that's
unrealistic,
just not
right?
real. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very unrealistic. Yeah. And it gets us caught
Yeah.
up in situations that we may not really need to even be in?
Right. No, so true. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like Marvel says, love is not one dimensional. And that's very true. It's not. And it is levels to it. I think too,
Mm-hmm.
when people talk about like, okay, I love you. Um, and then you think about, 10, 15 years in, and I think sometimes people try and weigh it, right? But I do think that
Right.
you can love someone and then you can grow more in love with them. And I think that that's back to what you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
Midas, earlier about those experiences and the things that you've been through with that
Mm-hmm.
person. And it's just like, oh, wow. Like, like I love you more today than I loved you,
Yeah,
when I married you or whatever,
absolutely.
and some
Right.
people were thinking like, I didn't
Yeah.
even know it was possible because really, you're going through this thing and it may be the first time. So you really are like, this is the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much I could possibly, love this person, when I think about that,
Yeah.
like, with
Right.
family, and different people, I'm just like, I don't know if I can love someone even more than this. Like, what does that look like, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't, and I still don't know. I guess I won't know, until, till that time, actually comes.
Yeah,
So for
absolutely.
Right.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think too, wanted to add about like the misconceptions of it. We were kind of touching on it, but that unconditional love, that you can be abusive with it, and that you can
Mhm.
take advantage. And when people think that, it's just
Mm.
weird because it's kind of like, well, if you're taking advantage and being abusive, then is that love? You know?
Right. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. That is
It's
manipulation.
yeah,
But I
exactly.
think I think
Mm-hmm.
my buddy Alfred, who's tuned in, he said it the best. He said the
Okay, let me look at
only
these.
thing that's only is two things that's you love unconditionally are
Hmm.
dogs or animals and
Hmm.
babies. And I'm assuming he's saying that because they don't give us anything, right? As
Hmm.
far as no lip, no grief, they newborns, they babies and animals, animals.
Hmm.
But it's more or less we want nothing from them.
Right,
They
like we
can't
spoke
take
about earlier.
nothing. They can't take
Mm-hmm.
nothing from us, right?
Hmm.
So we have no
Right.
conditions. Everything's just unconditional. It's more natural. There's
Mm.
no strings attached. I love you
Mm-hmm.
for who
Hmm.
you are.
Right.
Yep.
And I
So
guess we can keep breaking that down though.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you think about it, it's like the more you think about it and then you hear it, because you spoke about that earlier. And that's too the link that I, had sent you guys and has been going around on social media. And they're talking about
Mm-hmm.
that only dogs,
yeah,
children, and women receive unconditional love. Men are only loved if they, what was the thing? I think if they provide something. But
Provide something. Yeah.
yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
with that, like even what we're talking about with the kids and things like that, like you don't, expect anything from them. So it's kind of like where your expectations are set, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
you're not really challenged, you know what I mean? Like you're not challenged with
Yeah.
anything because you're just kind of like, oh, okay, I know what my responsibility is, right? And I think that a lot of times that it's the same with, with men, right? And so with men, they know like, okay, this is my responsibility. So it's like it's not really, expected. And a friend of mine, he had broke it down, and I actually wanted to touch on that, as well, about um ab- about as far as coming from that male's perspective and what they, are valuing over the other. Let me see here, because I had forgot about it for a second. And I was just like, you know what? No, I definitely want to mention that because I think it's really important. Hold on.
While you looking for that, might I say something?
Okay. Yes, of course. Of course.
Rakia just said people don't take accountability enough to be loved unconditionally. And
Mm.
that's the difference between a dog and a baby, because the baby and the dog are going to do what they have to do. And even if you discipline them, they still going to come back to doing things that they're supposed to do. Where you have your spouse just giving the other, they don't necessarily take the accountability for that unconditional love. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I think that's pretty
Hmm.
deep too.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's interesting because we're talking about like our pets, they get love unconditionally, but maybe the pet is doing the loving unconditionally.
100%.
100.
Because as people,
Yeah, there is
we
that too. You're right.
Yeah.
gotta be tripping a little bit.
That's true. You're right.
And so, so when I
Hmm.
shared the video with him, he was just saying that he thinks that one is celebrated. He said he thinks that I think that no one is celebrated until they do something for someone, and that it's a great thing basically to to have unconditional love. He's like, but the statement is a human issue, not a gender issue, because we were talking about that, how it always comes back to this man versus woman situation. So he said it's a human
Yeah.
issue over a gender issue. Therefore it's not true. As for the unconditional love, I think it can only be given to self by self, and I love that. To self by self. Expecting unconditional love from anyone outside yourself is unreasonable. Love should have conditions, and when you respect those conditions, you respect the person who extends their love. However, although I understand the sentiment of love, most people have their own definition of the word, which makes love a very hard idea to provide. Hmm.
Mm.
So in regards to God, oh, so yeah, to the friend that had was talking to me about it, he was just saying how men, you know, um, want respect and women, want love. So I was telling him about that, and then he was giving me his perspective on the video, and and that's interesting too, because you do hear that more so, about men saying, I want you to respect me. And when we think about the things that are on our list of what women want and desire and what men want, women want to be protected and provided for, and we want to be loved. We want to feel adored, right? And men, they want sex and they want to be respected, and for you to be there, stroke their ego a little bit,
Hmm.
but as far
Men
as
want
love,
love too, just so y'all
yeah,
know.
no, I agree. I believe that men want
Right.
love too, but what you hear, like,
Yeah.
because this is what we're talking about in these
Oh yeah.
relationships, we're not
Absolutely.
clear about what it is that we want. And
Hmm.
so we get lazy and we're just like, well, you said this. I respect you,
Right.
and it's just like, but no, but I might want to feel loved and feel like, you feel like I'm the guy of your dreams sometimes, and I know a lot of times men are not able
Hmm.
to speak to that and be able to say, hey, well, maybe, I like flowers, it's like they got to say it in a masculine voice. I like flowers too, It's sometimes I like,
Hmm.
these different things, some romance, right? And I think that that's
Right.
important, for us to be able to, to say that and
Right.
admit that, like, you want love too. You're a human. You're a human
Right.
being, and everybody wants to be loved, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
No, okay, Sunshine poses unconditional love, rarely talks about twin called pragma love, which is known as enduring love. Well, yes, and that, sorry, I just kind of jumped through that, and we didn't really touch on that. And that was the definition of unconditional love, right? So unconditional love is known as affection without any limitations, or love without conditions. The term is sometimes associated with other terms such as true altruism or complete love. Man, I
Hmm.
mean, it sounds good.
Right.
It sounds good.
Hmm.
But it makes me think about, what are you motivated by, right? So if you're not motivated, you know, by certain things, it's not really going to, inspire you to do much, right? So
Right.
if you know that, like,
Hmm.
taking care of someone is what is your thing, right? And and
Hmm.
when I take care of you, I get XYZ, right? Back in return. If you're
Mhm.
going to give me that regardless, I might not do it. You know what I mean? Like when you
Mm-hmm.
think about like other things that we're motivated by something. And if I'm going to get that
Mhm.
regardless, I may not do it. Yeah, this person is my twin flame. Okay. Okay, I was just reading that. I didn't know if there was a question. Everybody, if you guys have questions, please throw them in the comments. I know someone else was mentioning about what their thoughts were about unconditional love. And they stated, I think that it does exist, but it's aspirational at best for us
Mhm.
mere morals. It's the human condition that can sometimes prevent us from loving someone unconditionally. And yeah, I could say
Hmm.
that I agree with that because we have
Exactly.
these things that get in the way, right?
But sometimes,
Hmm.
most
I just
relationships.
want to say, oh, go ahead,
Oh,
Sasha.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
go ahead,
Go
Midas.
ahead.
Oh no,
Oh,
I was just gonna say that. I was just gonna say people are always worried about unconditional love when we haven't
mm,
even mastered love with conditions yet. Like,
mm,
can I trust you? Do you
right,
even want to do the things that you said that you were going to do in this relationship? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you take
right,
out the trash? Do you pay your bills on time? Like, you're talking about unconditional love, but we haven't even gotten to conditional love yet. Like, I can't even
true,
see if you will do. Are you a man of your word? Are you a person of your
mm,
word? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right,
before we even have conversations about unconditional, let me
mhm,
see how you actually are as a person. And
right,
that's what we need to be doing when we're vetting and deciding who to even spend time with, because
mm,
people are entertaining a lot of folks, right? And
right,
I've been told a million times over, it's a different dating world. Now we have more options, yada, yada. We have dating apps and things like that,
mhm,
which is all well and good. So if we're going to decide now to put
more
ourselves out
distractions.
there and spend that time with
Right.
other people, exactly. Because that's what I told somebody the other day.
It's
Now you
more
have more
distractions.
distractions than you
Right,
did before.
right,
So how are we even getting to the point where we can vet properly, figure out what
right.
our conditions are, see
Mhm.
if they match your conditions first, and like
Right.
let's see if this can marry or come together and really become something before we talk about unconditional love. You know, it's like cart before the horse kind of thing
Right.
almost.
Mm.
But sometimes in relationships, love is blinded when security kicks in. Because one
Mm.
thing a woman don't want interfered with is security. When you
Mm.
touch a woman's security and the things that when you touch woman's security, that's what scares her, right?
Yeah.
Most women will put up with a lot of things from us men as
Uh,
long as we still show some sense of security, whether it's
that's true.
security of a financial security, whether it's security of comfort or
Mm.
security of just having a household,
Mhm.
right? That's why a
You're
lot
right.
of times women can get mistreated and cheated on over and over again. But she say, you know what? If I leave my guy and go with the next guy may do the same thing, but
And not provide all these
he may
other
not be able to
things.
provide the same security. So
That's
we have
true.
to understand we can't let security
Yeah.
blind us in relationships. You got me?
Mhm.
Like because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
tough.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and that
That's
goes
a good
back to
point,
those
Sasha.
those those
Thank you.
lists, those lists of what's important to men and what's important to women. And
Hmm.
you're right. And I think that you will deal with more, if you have these things that are important to you. If you
Yep.
have these things that are important to you, you'd be like, well,
Hmm.
eh.
Yep.
I guess
Yep.
I can stay,
I mean, that's real. Look,
Yeah,
That's
I
hey,
mean,
we're
that's the
humans,
human
man.
part, I
You know what I'm
guess.
saying?
yep.
It's
Yeah.
true. Yeah. I mean,
So,
we can all think of situations where we probably would have laughed at ourselves if somebody else tried to do some of the mess that we may have let somebody else do, you know?
mm,
Like
uh-huh.
person B did something crazy, but person A did something crazy, but person A's just got a different type of charisma or whatever. And you're just like,
Mhm.
you get on my nerves, but you're cool.
Right,
Person B, you kicking them out your place. So
Yep.
I get
right,
it.
right. Because there's other little factors that kind of will go into it that
Hmm.
really, I think, because of the flesh, it'll inspire you, to say, you'd be like, well, they do this, but like they,
Right.
they're irresistible, and so that's gonna kind of change some things.
Yeah.
You're like,
Mhm.
well, I'm gonna put up with it a little bit longer. We're gonna see. Maybe we'll go to counseling. We're gonna see. We're gonna give them to the third,
Yeah.
we're gonna get to the
A-
third of it. Get a little
Amen to
extension.
counseling. Hello.
Right. Yes.
Hmm.
Counseling is everything. Okay. So Alfred said that most people are all about their security, and that's what their love is based on. Yeah.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
probably so.
Yeah.
I'm sure. What's love? The real question, because yeah. And then, I think too, we didn't really touch on it, but kind of when I was reading my friend's comment about different love languages. And that's the thing. Like, that's why I really love the book, was it the five love languages? I think
Mhm.
everybody should read that. And then
Hmm.
also they have one for children. For children. And I think that that's really good
Yeah,
too,
I saw.
because you can kind of help your children's emotional intelligence by getting to know that about them, and then helping them understand
Hmm.
that about them, so when they get grown and they're in these different relationships, or as they continue to grow, the relationships they have, they can have more respect for themselves, and what it is that they actually need, and want,
Yeah.
and they can express that to other people so that people can love them better, and so
Absolutely.
that, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, Too many people think
Hmm.
unconditional love means unconditional tolerance. You can love someone to the moon and back and still have boundaries. Amen. 100%
Preach.
Amber.
Amen.
And
A
Amen to
hundred
boundaries.
percent.
Absolutely.
Yes, and that
Yeah.
those are some of
And
those.
V, I was just gonna say,
Mhm.
no, no, finish your sentence, please. Go ahead.
Oh, no, 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 you're fine. You were saying you were getting ready to say something. I think that's what
Oh yeah, so I was just gonna say, my wife and I, we use the love language book for my 7-year-old.
Mm,
So it recommends for kids that are 8 and up,
okay.
but we were able to, because we had already determined what her love languages were. And
Okay.
so it's hers are words of affirmation and acts of kindness. And so it's so funny that you said that, because you're right. Our whole thought process was like, as she gets older, when it
Mhm.
gets to be that time, we'll be able to help her figure out some of the things, because we've
Right.
already kind of gotten to that part. You know what I mean? So it won't be
Mhm.
like the guessing game, like most of us got back in the day. Where we
Right.
got advice and it was just random, random advice.
Right, because they didn't know, too. And then there's so much more,
Yeah, of course. Right.
information now that's available, that,
Hmm.
parents really can be
Right.
rock stars. They really can, if they,
Exactly.
if they
Yeah.
have time,
Mhm.
or just, I mean, the information's there. So it's really nice. Alfred had said, or I think he asked a question. Oh, does unconditional love only exist in relationships, or does it apply with friendships as well? And that's so interesting,
that's a
because
great
I
question.
think it does. Any
I think
relationship.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I think it only exists in friendships when you guys both get to a point where you neither one of y'all need each other, but your chemistry and your friendship remains the same.
Mm,
That's the only way you can tell if your friendship's
Mm.
unconditional, when y'all both at the same point of life, but and y'all neither one of y'all need each other, but your chemistry, your friendship,
Mm.
everything remains the same or gets better. That's the only way.
I
Because if
love
not,
that.
as soon as you tell that friend
Yeah,
no,
that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
it's over. It's World War III. Or you tell that person how you
Mm.
truly feel, right? Or if you give them constructive criticism, it's World War III, right?
Right.
So
Mm.
I think that's what it's based off of. And
Mm.
speaking on the love language thing, I
Hmm.
think one love language that's not within the five, but I think it's consistency. I think
Mm,
if you I think that should be added to
100%.
personal
hmm.
opinion, because when
Yeah,
you keep that
totally.
same energy from the start, all the duration out, because one thing women tell us men is, you wasn't like this at the beginning. right? Where
Mhm.
was you at when you first got me? Do the same thing you did to get me to keep me, right?
Mhm.
So I think
Mhm.
consistency
Mm-hmm.
very, very, very important. I think that should be also a love language. Keeping the same
Yeah,
energy.
I think I agree because I do appreciate that. Like that makes me feel secure with it. Like don't switch it on up. My grandpa used to say, "Don't start nothing you can't keep up." And I tell
Yeah,
that to the men I date. I'd be like, "I'm gonna let you know now. Don't st-
yeah,
Hey,
don't start nothing you can't keep
listen.
up because
Mm-hmm.
that right there is gonna bother
Mm-hmm.
me and we won't be talking anymore. I
yeah.
promise you that. Because
Mm-hmm.
it makes you feel like, okay, oh, you unstable, you flip floppy, and we don't know what's gonna happen next. Like I can't count
Yeah,
on you because the consistent
Yeah.
part, is hand in hand with account, with not accountability, but being dependable. And that's important, it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
depend on you. If you say you're gonna do something and then you don't do it,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
listen, it's gone. Like the respect is gone,
Exactly.
everything. Like I've dated someone, and
Mm-hmm.
when you say you're gonna do something, and then you end up not doing it, you might get one time. But if it's two times, there's nothing, you can't come back from it.
Yeah.
You can't, because now I'm just like, either you don't know that you have an issue with this, or you do know and you don't care, and neither of those are gonna work. I'm just like, I can't do it. I cannot. So, but yes, and then
Exactly.
with the friends comment, was Alfred's comment. I definitely believe that with friendships, for sure, because just like you said, Sersha, about when things don't change, even though you don't need each other. And
Yep.
for me, with my best friend, that unconditional love is there. And I think that outside of children and your parents and things like that, I feel like marriage and your friendships give you an opportunity to really experience unconditional
Mm-hmm.
love, because you don't have to love them. Your friend, you don't have to love them. And then that person that
Mm-hmm.
you marry, people get married all the time and don't really love that person, don't even know them.
I don't even
And
know.
so, it really gives you that opportunity to grow to that. And I think that was one of our other questions. I don't know how far down. Okay, yeah, the next question, but and that is, can you grow? Can you grow to or learn to love unconditionally? So you guys can add to that. Please do.
Mm-hmm.
Key Midas, you go ahead first, and answer that
Yeah.
question. Can you
I
learn to love unconditionally?
I think so. You know, I think you will absolutely be able to get to a point where you just look at that person and you've just reached a level where you're like, there's nothing this person can do that
Mm,
is going to tear me away from them. Right. And again, I feel like it's after you've got some miles under your belt and y'all been through some things. But, for example, for me, like one quick thing, on the positive side, like when my wife and I bought our house together,
mm-hmm,
for the family and everything, we literally put like every dollar that we had, right, to
mm,
buy this, nice big house, whatever. And it
mm,
was such a monumental moment for both of us that it was one of those things that kind of just was another notch on the belt and cemented us even more, right?
yeah.
And then another example, last year when I caught COVID, I
Mm-hmm,
was down for 3 weeks in the guest room, you know what I mean? While she's handling both of the kids, working, doing all that kind of
mm,
stuff. Like there's just certain things while she's nursing me to health, right? So there's
right.
just certain things that you just experience with one another. And
Right.
it puts you in a space where it's like, man, look, because this person has seen me at my best when I'm at my happiest, like when we
uh,
bought the house and life was amazing, to
right.
literally my worst. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's like,
Exactly.
yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Sersha.
I think yes, you can learn to love unconditionally, but only if you know how to love yourself first.
Mm.
Because I think
Okay.
unconditional love is so challenging, right? But if you don't love self first, if you can't look in the
Mhm.
mirror and say, I love myself and genuinely mean that, I think it's going to be highly difficult to do that. I think it's
Mhm.
going to be a strong paradigm shift, right? I think your mind
Right.
frame has completely changed completely for you to love someone unconditionally, but I
Mhm.
do think you can learn to love someone only if you love yourself first. So that's
Yeah.
my answer.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that with unconditional love, growing to it, I believe that you can. Just based on the fact with love, like you can grow, to love someone, and then as that grows, it can turn into unconditional love. I don't really see how it can't. Once you have gotten to that place and truly love a person. I mean, if you can love them with agape love, there's nothing you can't do in my book. So, but I definitely, what is it? I don't agree. I loved unconditionally before I conquered self love. Hmm.
Interesting.
That is
But
interesting. I would probably like to know more about that. It's easier to date someone with the same love language as you. Definitely. I think that, okay. I think that when you speak the same language, yeah, of course, it's a little bit easier because you're able to communicate, I think, a little bit more effectively. And when you don't have the same love language, it makes it a little bit more difficult
mhm.
to understand each other. So totally agree with that. Okay, so it looks like let's see. Oh, okay. All right. So it looks like King Midas, he had to step out. He got a surprise. His family surprised him for the holidays. So thank you, King Midas. We just thank you right now for showing up. And we will definitely put your information out there for folks who want to follow you and seek, get advice from you, because you offer tons of great marriage advice, and for men who are marriage minded, and even for women just listening in, to understand what that looks like, what it looks like, um, to interact with a marriage minded man, so you know what to look for just in case you don't know what to look for. So thank you so much, King Midas. And King Sersha, I'm going to go ahead and give you this time to leave any last thoughts about the topic, and then tell us where we can reach you for the audience so that they can know as well. It should be popping up here.
Awesome.
Uh, yeah.
Okay. First and foremost, again, V, I definitely appreciate the platform.
Oh,
Amazing host. Thank you once again,
thank
as
you.
well. When it comes to love and unconditional love, or relationship or dating, or
Hmm.
even marriage, right? I don't think there's a manual. I think this is a
Mm,
figure it out type thing. I do think that you have to have some um, expectations within the relationship,
hmm.
um, based off of what you willing to sacrifice or what you willing to accept. I'm
Hmm.
not talking about expectations. I'm talking about if my woman or my man don't make 6, 7 figures a year, it's off. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just things that you were willing to willingly accept, right?
Right. Hmm.
And I think if you lead and go into a relationship with expectations that make you genuinely happy, right?
Okay.
Because money is a byproduct of relationships,
Hmm.
right? It's all about how someone make you feel.
Hmm.
Um, is going to determine, like I said, love is subjective, right? But if you with somebody and they have all the riches and stuff, but if they make you feel less than or feel like a peon and all the above, that's
Hmm.
not love. That's not conditional love. It's
Right.
just they're they're abusing you and they're manipulating you, but you're staying strictly based off of the security itself. So
Right.
just find somebody that fits you, that makes you happy, that tap into your love languages, but include consistency in your love language,
Yes.
and hold people accountable and hold yourself accountable when it comes to relationships and stuff. One last thing, if I tell you where to find me at, is
Hmm.
this may not be the most popular thing to say, but keep your relationship off of social media and make it
Mm.
more private. because I feel private relationships or shielded relationships, they last longer, they're more genuine. Because 9 times out of 10, when you have an argument or disagreement with your significant other, you don't tell your friend the whole story. You tell
Right.
them enough to make your partner look bad. They now give you an influential answer, right?
Based off of that, this
Based
one-sided.
off what you say, and
Mm-hmm.
now your whole relationship start to shift and go left.
It's
Your
true.
friend never forget the problem. You and your significant other forgets it. Y'all move on. But your friend always say, remember how he did this? Or remember how she did that? And now your
Mm-hmm.
relationship is in turmoil strictly based off of the things that your friend and family was saying. So
Right.
that's just my opinion based off of that.
No, that's good.
Um,
That's
you can
good.
find me on my business website. It's Everyone Loves Pearly Whites. It's teeth whitening. My
Yay.
personal,
I need to
my
get that. I'm gonna get
personal. Thank you, thank
it.
you. My personal website is Saoirse Gets Money Davis. I'm going to start putting content on there,
Yes.
teaching people how to do sales. I have over 17,000 hours of sales. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
teach people how to do that, and then also how to make 6 figures a year. I'm doing that. I don't know, last probably 10 years or so. I'm gonna teach
Okay.
people how to make 6 figures a year, and then also, if you're interested in being a teeth whitening business owner, you can tap in as well. And then also, I do credit repair too.
Okay.
So you can tap into that as well. You can be a credit repair specialist as well too. And
That's awesome.
that's it.
Awesome. Well, no, all those things are everybody. There's a lot of people I'm sure who want to know how to do it, and get those extra streams of income. That's
Yes.
that's the way to do it. The
Yes. Yes.
sky's the limit. So, thank you so much again for joining us. I really appreciate it, and appreciate the value that you brought to this conversation. And to everyone else, thank you so much for.
Thank
Oh,
you.
he said, wow, he does have amazing teeth.
Thank you.
That's
I appreciate it.
right. Walking
Thank you.
advertisement, right? And so thank you everyone for what is this? Please stop confusing the love languages of gifts with receiving gifts. Yeah, it's about showing someone that you love by giving them gifts. Again, not receiving them. Yeah, that's very true with the gift giving or receiving gifts. Gift giving. Either even when I read that, it basically a person's who love language who is that they don't care what the gift is. They're not like, oh, I need a Birkin bag. No, they're like it doesn't matter what you give them. You could have picked a flower out in the garden and brought it
Yep.
in. You could have wrote them a love note. Like they just like getting stuff. And I was like, I kind of like that because I am one of those people who get excited about nothing. I'd be like, oh, that was so nice that you even thought of me, and I'm all excited. And it was like something that might have cost $3, but I love it, and that's just because you enjoy the fact that someone is thinking of you when they don't have to. They got their own world, their own life, that's pulling them, each different way. So yeah, definitely check out that book, The 5 Love Languages. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us tonight for another episode of Talks with V. And make sure to follow Saoirse. Everyone loves Pearly White, right?
Yeah.
And on all platforms. And until next time, we'll see you then. And happy holidays.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, every happy holidays.